So continuing with what is the goal, the financial goal of the corporation, essentially the stockholder wants several things. It wants to maximize current wealth, transform wealth into most desirable time pattern of consumption, and to manage risk characteristics of chosen consumption plans. So basically, we're talking about what does the stockholder want? Basically, to maximize wealth and also protect it. In other words, if a corporation has achieved a certain amount of wealth, how is it going to be preserved? How can the risks of this wealth disappearing be managed? And also, how could the investments be made in a proper timeline and wisely in order to maintain the wealth of the corporation? So that's what we're going to look into in terms of how do companies actually grow earnings, how do they manage earnings, how do they make investments in order to maximize the wealth of the corporation. And that's what we're going to look in terms of companies' policies about valuation of profits, of looking at dividends, and basically looking at the profit maximization objective. And then what are the agency problem? The agency problem can be discussed as managers don't often always want to maximize wealth, and managers may be wanting to keep their jobs, and that's basically the agency problem. Is the managers may have a shorter term outlook and the stakeholders, owners, may have a longer term outlook, and that's exactly what the difference is. So in terms of the investment trade-off, the next slide we're looking at here, we're looking at managers have the trade-off of whether to give money back to the shareholders or to make investments into real assets. So that's what we're going to look at, is how managers make that investment. How do they decide what to invest into? And throughout the course, actually, what we're going to look at as well in terms of valuation of companies, that's going to be a topic for us. We're going to look at how do you value companies, how do you project earnings, and how do you basically value future earnings down the line. And we're going to look a little bit at a data file I've been working with at the S&P 500, and this data file includes essentially 500 companies that we're going to look to first calculate at some financial ratios, and then to see if we can even value the companies and basically look how, not just their valuation, but also how do they maximize value, what do they focus on, can we see that in the accounting as well, can we see what's going on in profit margins, asset turnover, and how does that reflect in this goal of maximizing the profit.